The light side of the Force is most commonly associated with the Jedi. However, there were many other light side organizations that existed throughout galactic history, many of whom were fiercely opposed to the Jedi's worldview. Similarly, many Jedi saw their own philosophy as the perfect and therefore the only way to follow the light side of the Force, and looked down upon these other light side organizations. This video will briefly explore the most notable of these alternative cults and explain how they differed from the Jedi both in their pursuit of the will of the Force and their practices. The first organization we will explore today were known as the Matukai. Matukai philosophy was based on achieving a balance and harmony between the Force and the physical body via exercise, which was used as a kind of meditation. Interestingly, they were known for being able to foster Force sensitivity in beings who were not naturally endowed with the Force, and their training included contemplative martial arts, physical training, and somatic rituals. They stressed keeping oneself clean and strong, cleansing oneself via physical exercise, and avoiding the dark side, all the while focusing upon their bodies. They did not utilize lightsabers, instead using a polearm weapon called a wan shen. In 580 BBY, a Jedi named Bodo Bass would try and recruit them to the Jedi Order. He had already tried and failed to recruit another light side group known as the Zeeshan Shah, which we will discuss later on in this video. However, his attempt to form an alliance with the Matukai was similarly fruitless, as they believed the Jedi's training to be elitist and ineffective, and the Jedi would leave the Matukai in peace for hundreds of years. Palpatine, however, would try to eliminate the Order during the Great Jedi Purge, with the remnants of the Order scattering across the galaxy. Unlike the Jedi, however, the Matukai had a decentralized organizational structure, allowing them to survive the turmoils of the Great Jedi Purge and later the Yuzongfong invasion. One of the most powerful and mysterious alternative light side organizations were known as the aing-tii monks. The aing-tii came from a planet in the Cathol Rift, whose whereabouts was a carefully guarded secret. Although they had mastered space travel, and some lived on semi-organic ships, the vast majority of the aing-tii had never left their homeworld or interacted with other species. Those who did, known as aing-tii warrior monks, were xenophobic and secretive, attacking those who attempted to learn more about them. The only time they made contact with the outside galaxy was to attack slavers, who they regarded as an affront to their religion. Although little was known about them, it was noted that all aing-tii sighted off-world were Force sensitive. They considered their Force abilities to be gifts from the deities, known to them as those who dwell beyond the veil. The aing-tii tried to avoid using the Force whenever possible. They considered the Force to be holy and something that should not be tampered with. The monks spent their entire lives running errands for their gods and conducting pilgrimages in the hope of receiving what they called the answer. Their view of the Force was also very different to the Jedi. They viewed the Force not simply as the light side or the dark side, but more like a rainbow with many different nuances and variations. They also believed events were not predetermined by the Force as the Jedi and Sith did, but were simply guided by it. The aing-tii utilized an ability known as flow walking, which allowed the monks to view events of the past or future and to a small extent alter them. The monks could also teleport objects as large as their 300-meter ships instantaneously across space. Due to their power and secrecy, the aing-tii were not assimilated into the Jedi and were largely left to their own devices by the New Republic and Luke Skywalker's New Jedi Order. The Guardians of the Breath were another light side organization that rose to prominence over 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. The order originated from the Kashimur dynasty, and like the Jedi, they were quite militant, using the Force to augment their speed and strength in combat. However, they focused much more heavily on the living Force, mastering the ability to enhance cell growth, as well as Force healing. They believed it was blasphemous to keep written records, and upheld a strict oral tradition, hence their name, the Guardians of the Breath. Unfortunately, their homeworld would be annihilated by a supernova, decimating the organization. Afterward, many of them would fall to the dark side, joining the heretical Dark Jedi Zendor in the First Jedi Schism. The Jedi would wipe Zendor and his followers out, and so the Guardians of the Breath would fade into obscurity. However, scattered remnants of the Order did exist for thousands of years, before slowly fading out of existence around 1,000 years before the Clone Wars. Another light side organisation that was more well known were the Baron Doe of the Keldor species, of which Plo Koon was a member. The Baron Doe had served as advisors to Keldor society's leaders long before the species joined the Republic. The sages first utilised the Force to enhance their natural senses, enabling them to identify hazardous weather occurrences ahead of time, saving the lives of countless Keldors by forewarning of oncoming natural disasters. However, the Baron Doe spent many centuries contemplating the nature of the Force, allowing them to see into the future, making them even more important to Keldor's civilization by helping to avoid conflicts and averting disasters far in advance. The Baron Doe also specialised in lesser known abilities such as weather manipulation, with powerful practitioners able to freeze water, create whirlwinds and summon fog. The Order refused to use the Force for offensive purposes, and they were disparaging of the Jedi, who they described as militant. After the Keldor's admittance into the Galactic Republic, the Jedi would eclipse the Baron Doe in prominence. Most Force-sensitive Keldor would instead join the Jedi, and the Baron Doe faded into relative obscurity. Fortunately, their obscurity would go on to save the Order, and they would go relatively unscathed by Order 66. Another order that rose as advisors and educators for their native planet were the Luca Sene. They developed among the species known as the Mirror Luca. This species of near-humans did not possess eyes and instead used the Force to see their surroundings. While every Mirror Luca utilised the Force to perceive their surroundings, certain Mirror Lucans had a stronger connection to the Force than others. Mirror Luca educators and leaders urged these Mirror Luca to join the Luca Sene. The Luca Sene fostered an academic culture, concentrated mainly on improving their members' sense-related abilities. The Luca Sene were often considered by off-worlders as a Force user institution, where courses and education were held. It did not, however, dictate a member's personal life, unlike the Jedi, Sith, and other traditions. Instead, members of the Luca Sene could be found in every area of society and in every profession. The majority of members only possess minor enhancements in their senses, which they utilised to better their own lives, professions, and Mirror Lucan civilization. Those with greater levels of sensitivity within the organisation would go on to work as administrators and mentors within their society. Luca Sene put a strong emphasis on the Force's light side aspects. Nevertheless, some Mirror Lucans fell to the dark side. When a Mirror Lucan was suspected of turning to the dark side, the Luca Sene would send out Sene Seekers to find the fallen individual. Unlike with the Jedi, efforts would be made to redeem that person. However, if the person proved to be beyond redemption, the Sene Seekers would try to capture them for imprisonment. If there were no other options, the dark side individual was to be eliminated. Another order was known as the Zeeshan Shah. These were in fact an offshoot of the Jedi Order from 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. At the beginning of the New Sith Wars, many Jedi's friends and family fled the Republic to the remote world of Yanibar. The colonists expected the Jedi to return for them once the war with the Sith was over. Unfortunately, the Jedi would never return to them, as all the Jedi with the knowledge of the colony had perished during the war. Many of the colonists would die as a result, but those who did survive developed a rugged philosophy of self-reliance, based upon the light side of the Force. Protecting one's family was considered the most important thing to the Zeeshan Shah, with generosity to others also considered a noble endeavour. When they eventually encountered the Jedi again, they were appalled by the fact that the Jedi wanted to take their children, refusing to join the Order. Just like the Baron Doe, this would save them, with the Zeeshan Shah surviving Order 66. Another group that survived Order 66 were the Fallen Assi, who were also called the Adepts of the White Current. After being approached by the Empire who wished to use their services, the Fallen Assi fled into hiding, refusing to bow down to Palpatine. The Fallen Assi were a religious organisation dedicated to the White Current, known as the Force among the Jedi. It was mainly a female-dominated organisation that refused to educate men on their society or skills. The Fallen Assi were especially skilled in creating Force illusions, as well as another ability known as Force Immersion, which rendered them undetectable. However, they lacked the capacity to manipulate the physical world via skills like telekinesis. Unlike the Jedi, they preached that authority was a figment of the imagination, that everyone should be guided only by their own wants and needs. These light side orders were not the only Force sects to rival the Jedi and the Sith. There were in fact many other bizarre Force groups that followed the dark side of the Force, which you can find out about in this video.